doing trainings for
a variety of different companies on what's called the One Thing. So, which is something we may add into our repertoire at some point in time. Today, everybody got a copy of the handout? I noticed that when my name appears on the schedule, how that affects the attendance.
They probably just thought you weren't back.
You weren't here this morning at 10 a.m.
I know, I sent out an email.
I know, but the Market Center sent out emails after you sent out
I
an
know.
email announcing that you were teaching the classes that you didn't.
It's yeah. Well, anyhow. So, but I'm here. Yeah. What? I'm going to close this. So what we wanted to, what we're talking about today is the listing presentation or the listing consultation. And because of what we were doing beforehand, I may be a teensy bit behind. Back when I was active, I'm not so active now, you probably have noticed. Doesn't sound good. Agents would oftentimes say, they would ask me if they could go with me on a listing presentation. And I'd say, sure. And we would go to the listing presentation, and they were usually disappointed. That's all I could say. And it wasn't that I didn't get the listing, because usually I ended up with the listing, but what was disappointing is that they were really looking for a presentation. And what they saw was not so much of a presentation. They saw me asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. There's a thing called the scorecard, which is a form used by KW where I'll be digging it out again at certain points. I pull it out and let everybody take. It's like a self-diagnosis as to how well you're doing on 21 different points involving real estate. If you wanted to read it now, guess how you would find it? Or if you were in kw.com, you could type in scorecard. And I haven't done this recently, but there it is, your professional scorecard, including a PDF of the scorecard and 4 parts of Diana Kokoska, basically explaining this is rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how well would you evaluate yourself on all these 21 different parts of being a real estate agent. And what she says makes you a 10 when it comes to the listing presentation is that you spend 90% of your time listening and asking questions and 10% of your time talking. And that's usually a ratio that people have difficulty with because you want to go and do a presentation. Now, I'm going to show you the presentation is sometimes more of a prop or a crutch, but I'm going to show you where you can get your hands on several of them that are Keller Williams-ish, part of the Keller Williams e-Edge system, part of the Michael Lewis marketing suite. Ben Kinney, who's going to be speaking at Mega Camp, is a mega agent at Keller Williams. I have a copy of his PowerPoint presentation and his script, which for a nominal fee, I'm authorized to resell. And what I'm going to do is I have this folder where I've just been this morning dumping stuff in, and I'm going to take the link and I'm going to put it on kw.com, and I'm going to do it while you're watching me so you could find it when you want to look at this folder. There's more than you can stand will be in this folder about listing presentations. If you wanted to,
Are you recording today?
Yes, I'm recording today. Normally, by the way, in real estate, that's a really good thing to say. We're recording today. Isn't that a good thing to hear? Yeah. So let's start with a football metaphor. How about that? Doesn't that sound like a good place to start? Has anyone here heard of a football player played for a local team. His name was Joe Montana. Anybody ever? Anybody? All right. Just want to make sure not everybody's into sports. Joe Montana was relatively successful. In one of his interviews, they asked him about preparation. And he said that he averaged 55 hours a week practicing. He also had figured out from watching films of himself playing that the amount of time in a game that he actually had the ball in his hands and could do something with it, what would that average be? Because you understand, let's say the defense is on the field half the time, right? So Joe Montana doesn't have the ball, right? They hike him the ball and then he usually does something with it, hopefully quickly, right? So he then doesn't have the ball. And his average time of holding the ball in a game was 12 minutes. So he spent 55 hours practicing for 12 minutes. Now, can anybody see how that might relate to a listing presentation? How would this relate to a listing presentation? Don't everybody blurt out answers at once.
Preparation to do a CMA and all the stuff that you have to do in order to present the listing presentation.
That's good, yes.
You have to prepare so that whatever comes up, hopefully you would be able to answer that question intelligently. So you might need to go around and look at comp sheet and do a CMA and spend hours and hours preparing. But when you get there, you want to get them to speak and you want to get them to answer your questions.
Very good. Any other thoughts about that?
You have to do farming to get listing.
Well, that's something else. They had the 49ers had to recruit people before they could put Joe Montana on the field. They had to have they did a lot of other things. What I'm going to start with, these are what I consider two easy first steps. What you ought to do is this, by the way, is an action item. Just a second, Ryan. The office is calling me.
I don't know where you are.
They're forwarding the call to your phone more.
Yeah. Anyhow, sometimes they forward calls to me when they know I'm in a class, which I wonder. But what I would do as a starting point is, and let me make sure I have this big enough that you could read this. What I would like you to do is to think about, if you're on a listing or presentation, to first of all make a list of all the questions they could ask you, and then what your answer would be. So those would be two different parts. The first thing is you take out a blank piece of paper, and I used to call this thinking backwards, but then people pointed out that that sounded confusing and like I was confused, which may have been the case. But with thinking backwards, what I meant by that is that put yourself in the mind of a potential seller. If you were interviewing a real estate agent, what are all the questions you could think of that they might ask? Don't worry about the answers right now. Just think of as many questions as you possibly can. All right, I'm serious, right? We're actually going to do this at some point. I mean, not right today, but and then once you've made a list of all those questions, then go back and look at each one and decide what will you say when they ask you that question. How long have you been in the real estate business? How many homes have you sold in our neighborhood? And then I started with the two worst ones, right? What are you going to do to market my property? What do you have to offer us? Right? Just if you were thinking of selling your home, all the questions you could think of. By the way, if you were to Google search questions to ask a real estate agent when selling your home, you'll find some assistance. Number two, make a list of all the objections you could encounter and determine how you will handle them. Now, in this monster folder, which I've been gathering, dragging all the different things that I have regarding real estate listing presentations into, which I'm going to post, I have some sample objections and things like that. Does everybody understand the idea here? Because I think it was Machiavelli who said, in time of peace, prepare for war. Right? He was a humanitarian, and this would help you the most. The other thing about the 55 hours for 12 minutes, supposing you spent 90% of your time listening and asking questions and 10% of your time actually talking, how much time are you actually going to be talking? It might be a little more than 12 minutes, but you understand it would be closer to that, right? So your 55 hours of practice is for that very short period of time. The other rule that I would have, this is sort of a rule, I'm going to actually mention, I'm going to say it's a rule. Talk about what is important to the sellers and nothing else. This is what people found disappointing in my listing presentation, because I had a PowerPoint listing presentation. I had animation. When I came in, I was linked to the internet. I had a tablet PC, not a tablet PC. It was hyperlinks in the PowerPoint presentation. When I click on them, websites would launch, videos would play. I had a listing presentation, but I didn't just start at the beginning and go through. Right. So what that would mean is that how would we know what is important to the seller? You would ask them. Do you mean just like ask them, so what's important to you? Would that?
You could.
You could.
You could say, in terms of selling your home, what is the most important thing to you? They'll probably say price.
They might say price. So what I've done, this is in my, this is not in, by the way, that's what my folder looks like, which I may edit some things out, but I decided I might as well. Some people, the high C's, are going to love this. So these are just some questions that I came up with. How long have you lived at the address? Where did you move from? Why are you selling? Where are you moving to? How do you feel about your upcoming move? Have you contacted an agent there? Why would we want to know that? Maybe we could refer them to a Keller Williams agent. What is your time frame? What do you feel your home is worth and why? Now, by the way, I'm going to talk about, I asked them that question on the phone. When somebody calls and says, hey, I'm thinking about selling my home, I'd like to talk to you, I would ask them a group of questions. I would ask them some of these very similar questions, but I'd ask them, why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? Why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? I would ask them, I would say, have you been paying attention to what's happening in your neighborhood? Do you have an idea of what your home is likely to sell for? If they say yes, what is that? Now, some people are going to blurt out a number. Others are going to say, I don't know. You got to tell us. We're not going to tell you, right? Isn't that the deal? You have to come over. So you just go on. But some people will tell you. Now, if somebody told me, I would rather know what they felt their home was worth before I went there. My rule about this is, and there's some assumptions. And by the way, some of what I'm about to say is not Keller Williams approved material, right? It's maybe not even Market Center approved material, and there's I just let you know their opinions vary on this. But like, for example, people would say don't ever take an overpriced listing. You get them to list it at the right price, or you don't take the listing. I was new in real estate, relatively new in real estate. That means this is a really old story. I was farming an area in Almaden. The house was on firewood. It was called Woodside, so it was almond wood and mark wood. I always thought firewood was a terrible name for a housing development street, right? Firewood. And at the time, this was a 4-bedroom house. It was a citation home. They had added a family room, and it was in a cul-de-sac. It was a nice lot, but a 4-bedroom with an additional family room. At the time, 5-bedroom homes, which were built with 5 bedrooms that were the same square footage as this one with its addition on similar lots, were the most anybody had ever gotten was $390. This is an old story, right? A long time ago. It was $390. So they asked me what I thought their home was worth, and I said, well, given the fact that you've got this addition and you're on the cul-de-sac and all that, we could go right to the job about $390, $395, something just under $400. And then I said, is that the number you had in mind? And they said, oh, no. No. We were thinking like 410 or 420. Now, what you're trained to say is, that's great, that's fine. You see, there's 2 decisions you have when you're deciding to sell your home. One decision is who is going to represent you, and that should really be decided based upon the marketing plan. The agent doesn't control the market, the agent doesn't control the price. The second decision is the price. So you get to pick the price. Whatever price you want, I'm good with. I'll go to the moon with you on the price. But you understand, at this point, it's like I've told them that their children seem kind of ugly, right? Do you understand? And once you've said that, it's very hard to say, well, ugly. I mean, really, what does that mean? Compared to what, right? And it's what's inside there. You understand, at this point, it's too late. They know that I don't think their home is worth over $400,000. They do, and they're not going to list it with me, right? So goes on the market, some other agent, $430. And I'm thinking, well, I'll get this when it expires. And in 10 days, it sold for $435 and closed. I was wrong, right? I was wrong. The same that house. It sold for a lot more than the market was picking up, right? So do you understand I would rather have an overpriced listing than no listing at all. If I have an overpriced listing, there are some things that could happen. 1, it might sell. 2, at that price. 2, they might lower the price. 3, I might find another seller. 4, I might find a buyer. Now, what good is going to happen if I don't have the listing? I'll have more time on the weekends. I won't have to spend money on making flyers.
Still might find somebody to buy it, but you won't get
Yeah, but I might as well find anybody to buy anything. It's not finding the house that gives you the buyer, it's finding the buyer that gets you the house. So do you understand? So my point is, my suggestion, for what it's worth, is don't debate people about the price necessarily, right? You understand? I listed a house in Sunnyvale for what I considered to be $80,000 over what it was worth. But I knew them, and they listed it for 1 year. Every new agent in my office got to do open houses, right? Every weekend, and you want to do an open house, he's got a listing. And what happened in about 8 months, the market kept going up, and their price kept coming down, and finally it sold. I made about 18 grand on the sale of the property, and if I had told them, I'm not listing your home unless you list it for the price I pick, none of that would have ever happened, right? So you understand why I would like to know what they think their house is worth. Because what I would like to do is to see if it's at all possible. Well, sometimes it's not possible. If it's a townhouse and it's got a certain number of square feet, there's going to be an appraisal. The appraisal is going to look at the same information, right? You understand? Sometimes it's not worth $80,000 or more, but this was a custom home, and who knows, right? You understand? Sometimes, who knows? So these are a bunch of other questions. What I would want you to do is to look at this list and add as many questions as you can think of to it. And what we're going to practice at some time, not today, because there's a party later, is asking questions, right? Because I used to just start with, why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? They would say why they're thinking of selling their home. What's most important to you about selling your home? Right? Now, they're going to generally say one of 3 things: price, convenience, or time frame. Right? And sometimes all three, but not always. One of the listings I got in Almaden, walking distance of Leland High School, it was a 3-bedroom house. One of the kids had gone. The 3rd bedroom they had converted into a sauna. They had bought a kit where there's no bed in the room. There's this big plastic bubble in the room, and they had a little door, and you open the door and you'd go sit on a little bench, and it was a dry heat sauna that was in the room. And there was piles of stuff all through the house you'd have to walk through in order to get through the house. And I started to talk about the sauna in the bedroom, and the husband said, "We're not doing anything. Nothing. We're not going to do anything. We're not picking up anything. We're not cleaning anything. We're not moving anything. We're not doing anything." And I said, "You realize that's going to have an effect on the price you're going to get?" He said, "Yeah, I don't care." Fine. Fine. Right? You understand? I'll list it. Fine. Right? Because I was going to explain to him that whoever buys this wants the bedroom for the kids to walk to Leland High School, right? And they're not going to want a sauna there. Do you understand that convenience was more important than price? Do you understand you need to figure this out? Right? And the way you figure it out is by asking questions and questions and questions. Can you see the kinds of questions you would ask in order to get there? I would ask them, some of these are on the list, have you ever sold a home before? Right? If they said yes, I would ask them, what did you like about the process? What didn't you like about the process? What did you like about the agent? What didn't you like about the agent? Right? And whatever their answers were. Now, by the way, this is a good thing to find out before you do your presentation, because sometimes I've had people say things like, "Well, we really hated that agent. He did open houses every weekend, and we know he wasn't even trying to sell our house. Some of our friends went by the open house, and they watched him doing the open house, and he wasn't even trying to sell it. All he was trying to do was find clients for himself to show other homes to." God, can you imagine somebody would do that? We know open houses don't work. We hate them. We don't want to do open houses. Would this be good to know before you went into your 7-level open house system? Right? Do you understand? Talk about what's important to the seller and nothing else. Right? You don't want to just say, "Sit back, folks, relax. Here's my presentation." Right? You understand that that's a big mistake, because there's things in it that they may not like. By the way, after I listed this guy's house, I got him to agree to do open houses. Right, on the convenience factor, rather than having people calling you all the time to make appointments every week. And isn't it better for us to just book a time when you could be gone, and then we could run them all through? Isn't that going to be better for you? I mean, really? And okay, right. So are you talking to other agents? A lot of people don't want to ask that question. Are you talking to other agents? Right, because they might say yes. Actually, what agents usually say to me is, "Well, maybe they hadn't thought of it. And if I ask them, then they will, and talk to other agents." Right? This is what I would say. "Hey, are you talking to other agents?" If they said, "Well, yeah," I'd say, "How many? Who? Why them? Why them?" Right? And what I used to work at Century 21, and what I would get often is they'd say, "Well, we're talking to a large independent, a large national company," and those, at the time that was Century 21, and an independent. How did they come up with that list? Well, they read it on the internet someplace. Yeah, I talked to a large independent, right? And so I was one of them, right? So I would ask who, why them? If they've already talked to them, I would ask, "Well, what did you think? What did they, I actually had people that would pull out their listing packages and show them to me. Yeah, that's a yeah. This is like, he had a binder. "Oh, really? Can I look at it?" "Sure, here, take a look at it." Right. So what did you like about them? What didn't? This is like peeling an onion, only there's hopefully less tears involved. In that, if you just keep asking questions and asking questions and asking questions about what's important to them, what I would ask, what's most important to you in picking a real estate agent? What is it? How are you going to decide who you're going to list your home with? That would be, I would ask them that question. And sometimes they'd say, "Well, what do you mean? How are we going to decide? Are you going to pick the agent who gives you the highest price? Pick the agent with the lowest commission? Pick the agent with the best marketing plan?" I mean, what is it that you're looking for in picking an agent? And then they would tell me. Now, do you understand, if I ask enough of these questions, do I have a good idea of what to focus on when it's my turn to talk? Right? Because they've told me, what didn't you like about if you had an agent before, what else didn't you like? Well, he didn't like the open houses, but he never called me. We didn't know what was going on. People were showing the home. We didn't get any feedback. You understand? That's something to talk about. All right. Now, I know I gave you a handout, which means I'm required to talk about it. So what I did, this is sort of partly Keller Williams stuff, part of my stuff. But this is old school. There are 4 parts to any presentation. You build rapport. People, don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Qualify. That means find out what their problem is. So why are you selling your home? Where are you moving to? When do you plan on being there? What happens if you don't get there on time? What's plan B? Sometimes, oh my God, there is no plan B. We ran it on. Oh, right. Do you understand? So, show is make your presentations. By the way, I used to call the CMA. Does everybody know what CMA stands for? Country Music Awards? Is that what it stands for? Do you think most people in the general public know what a CMA stands for? You think most people?
I think most people who are getting ready to sell their house,
they may know what a CMA is. I bet there's people who aren't sure what a CMA is. So I called mine the Guidelines to Market Value. That's what I used to call them. Guidelines to Market Value. And close means to get a decision. What is the purpose of a listing, a presentation, a listing consultation? To get a listing. Not a lot of people, the purpose, the goal is to get them to sign a piece of paper. A great old speaker in real estate by the name of Floyd Wickman used to say, no Siggy, no money. Right? If nobody's signing stuff, you're not getting paid. So the goal is to get them to sign something. In terms of rapport, you probably know what that is. What I would, some of this came from Keller Williams, and I've added to it. But the idea is find some common ground with them. I'll explain how you might do that. So the first step in getting a listing is you have to find a seller. Second step is a pre-listing phone conversation. And here I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because some of you can do that. Does anybody know where you could find a form for a pre-listing phone conversation? Anybody have any idea where you might find that form? On Keller Williams' website. That's a yes. Anybody know which courses you would look for to find a pre-listing phone conversation? Ignite. Ignite has a toolkit. An Ignite toolkit, which you can download, and it's got a form. There's another class called Seller Mastery, and you'll find a form there. So in the pre-listing questionnaire, you want to determine their how, when, where, why, and what is their motivation. And here's a copy of a form, and this looks very similar. I know you can't read it. If you say, I want a copy of, you have to go and download the one from the either Seller Mastery or Ignite. Is it important to know what their motivation is before you go there? Right? Because sometimes they have other reasons. So you want to have detailed information about the property. I would ask people, have you made any major improvements to the property? I'd ask them to describe their house. Now, a lot of times agents say, well, you can look all that up. You don't need them to tell you. You can get a lot of times what they describe is not what the public records say. Something is wrong, right? Which usually means they built something without permits. So I'm not going to do all of the CMA stuff today, but what I would recommend that you do is, and this is part part of this is in Ignite as well as in Seller Mastery. You should make a checklist of all the different things you're going to do when you get a listing. A checklist is a system. Did you know that? A checklist is a system. If you went to see the doctor, is there a checklist that they're going to ask you to fill out? Lawyers, I flew in an airplane. It seemed, I hope they have a checklist. So examples of what you might do is add them to your database, add them to a drip campaign, prepare a pre-listing package. That's a package you could get in their hands if you have time. Deliver the package, get tax information. That would be like Realist. Analyze the MLS, review the MLS, look at the map, Google Earth, looking around the surroundings. Right? Do you understand that you can see what's next door to them from Google Earth? Locate key proximities, DUMS, floodplains, busy streets, notable noise levels. Have the listing paperwork virtually completed. That means you go online, you fill out the worksheet, you put in all their information, you have one of the templates that we talked about. Did anybody talk about a listing template? So all the different forms that you would want to have in the listing, put them all there. Get the comparables, do the CMA, print out the CMA. Confirm the appointment means before we go there, did you get the package? Did you complete? There's sometimes a homework section. Great, we can do it when they're there. You want to make sure everybody's there because the goal is to get them to sign. Now, I've listed properties when everybody wasn't there, and they've sold. I've had a guy in Silver Creek said, my wife is in Shanghai. She wants to sell. Come on over. This is a really expensive house. And I went over and is it possible for somebody in Shanghai to sign listing documents? How would you do that? You could use DocuSign, digital ink. I use digital ink, by the way, because I'm cheap. And digital ink you're already paying for. And I sent it and she signed it and it came back and it sold and it closed. It was a really expensive house. So, but as a general rule, would you want to make sure everybody was there that's supposed to be there? Enter the home. By the way, I would arrive on time. I used to get there early. And by the way, if you get there early, don't park in front of the house and wait, right? So that you'll see them, looking out the blinds and seeing you sitting there in your car. The neighborhood watch guy comes by and starts asking you questions. So I would go around the block. By the way, it's a good thing to drive by the house before you get there. What would you be interested in if you did that?
First, you want to make sure you know where it is.
So you don't get lost. That's a good idea.
See what the neighborhood's like.
See what the neighborhood looks like.
You want to see what the curb appeal of their house is compared to other homes.
Curb appeal. That's great. Those are all good reasons. Any others? I had a listing in Blossom Valley. It was a one-story, and so the guy that owned it didn't live in it. So we were meeting at the property, and so I ran all the one-story, 3-bedrooms homes that had sold as a standard model. Everything was great. I had to see everything. I show up, and right next door is a 2-story house with a for sale sign in the front yard, and I don't know what it's listed for. Right? And I'm calling. There's no brochure in the brochure box. So would it be good to know that? What do you think the first question was that I found out what the listing price was of the house next door and how many square feet and how long it had been on the market? Because the first question he asked me was, hey, tell me about that house. Right? And if I said, I don't know. It's not a comparable for yours, so I don't know. And I'm trying to tell him that I'm a Blossom Valley specialist, right? I'm the neighborhood expert, but I have no idea what the next door house is listed for. That just doesn't look good. Also, there are times that I've driven around, I found for sale by owners in the neighborhood, not in the MLS. Would it be a good idea for you to have a reasonable understanding of what the for sale by owner is, what size it is, what they're asking for, how they've been, how long, right? That you could have you could discuss it. So you knock on the door, you get there on time. You don't want to creep them out by parking in the front. By the way, don't be careful where you park. People have their own personal parking spots. right? If you drive into their driveway and let's say the husband or wife is not home and you're in their parking spot, right? This is not a good way. If you park on their side of the street, sometimes they have their place that they like to park. This is not a good way to begin, right? So you park, if your car doesn't look so good, park so they can't see it, right? And then they'll never know. If you borrowed a Mercedes or something for this, park right across the street, right? Make sure it makes noise when you lock it so that they look out and see it. So you go, you knock on the door, take a step back from the door. Right? Don't be standing right so you scare them. They think you're a psycho about to break into the house. Take a step back. Introduce yourself. Thank you for inviting me tonight to list your home. Now, I used to say stuff like that. Right? I'm here. This is my name's Mike. Remember, I'm here to list your home. Now, and I've had people say, by the way, we're not listing our home tonight. We're just talking. Right? We just want you to understand. I had a guy on the phone tell me there's no way he was going to sign anything. When I knocked on the door and I said this, he said, no, there's no way we're going to sign anything. When I started talking, he said, just so you understand, we're not signing anything tonight. And at the end of the night, they signed the paperwork. Right? They signed.
What was your response each time they said that?
You don't have to respond. I would just say my general response to most objections was to ignore them, and I would say fine, and just keep going. There's nothing to say. Ask if you can place materials on the kitchen table. You want to do this at the kitchen table. You don't want to do it on the dining room table because there's probably a place setting that'll keep you from seeing. They may have the fancy plates and everything laid out, which is going to keep you from putting things down. The dining room is where they meet with guests, where they make the decisions, and where they meet with friends is at the kitchen table. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be in the living room or the family room. You sitting on a love sofa, him in his lazy boy, chair. She's on the other side. So you don't, there's a coffee table. That's not what you want. Kitchen table. You put your stuff down, and then I would say, give me a tour. Give me a quick tour of the property. This is what I used to say to people. I'd say, pretend you're a real estate agent. Right? I used to say this because I have a real estate school. Have you ever thought about being a real estate agent? Sometimes people say, well, yeah, actually, well, we can talk about that too. But pretend you're a real estate agent and show me your house like you would show it to a buyer. And then they'd go through and they'd point out stuff and I'd take notes. Right? Let me know what will stay with the property when it sells. What was it about this property that caused you to buy it? Ford is an acronym for things that you're looking for rapport, our family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. I've heard it also done as form, F-O-R-M, with the dreams replaced with an M for motivations. I actually had my own formula, which has to do with you listening, but I'm not going to anyhow. The idea is that you're looking for common ground as you're walking around. Things on the wall, things that they've done, something that you could chit-chat with. Ask them questions. Make notes of repairs, go back to the kitchen table. Let them know what is going to happen. You see that little bullet point there? This is important that you say, this is what we're going to do first, this is what we're going to do second, this is what we're going to do third. How's that sound? Give them the agenda. Because you might want to talk about pricing at the end and they might want to talk about it at the beginning. And if they're thinking, why isn't she talking about pricing? Why are you stalling? You understand? So if you say, this is what we're going to do first, I'm going to ask you some questions, find out whether or not it makes sense for us to work together. Then I'm going to show you what I and my company does to market homes like yours and to get them sold. And then we'll talk about pricing. And if we do all this successfully, we can come to some sort of a conclusion, don't you think? How's that sound to you? Notice the way I put it, if we do all this, we'll be able to come to a decision, right? So I'm setting that. I called my piece of paper a client qualifier. That's a form that I would take out and I would ask questions. Is it okay for you to take all the questions and print them out and take them with you? Sure, why not? Does that mean you have to ask every question? but might you find a question that you didn't ask, that you'd forgot to ask if you had the list? Then you talk about what you're going to do to market the property. I'll talk more about that. These are just some things you could do, agents versus consultants. By the way, and there's a CMA. That's what I want to do. I'm not going to talk too much about how much of this do I want to talk about. So a basis for this, let me just show you what some of your options are. If you go to mykw.com, by the way, just you might, I used to take lots of stuff. I had a binder that had tabs, it had copies of stuff. Some of the stuff I got from title companies. You can find lots of stuff. So let's say you wanted to bring stuff with you. You go to My Marketing and you go to, how about create marketing materials? And I may go 5 minutes past 3 in order to. Marketing listings. How about that? Email marketing, postcards, newsletters. Designed library. Let's just type in listing and see what we find. I think it's saying we couldn't find what you're looking for. So here are some postcards just listed. Would it be useful to show people what your marketing materials might look like, including property flyers and things like that? So what I would suggest that you do, by the way, the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite, which I've got a video on someplace, has more elegant looking flyers, but what you ought to do is find a listing in the office. I would ask the listing agent, just tell her or him that you're making some sample marketing materials. Is it okay if I use your listing as a sample? They're going to say yes. And then download the pictures and make a flyer that has your name, your picture, and your phone number on it. What I would do is I would go through the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite and on different listings make flyers with all the different kinds of templates that they have. And I would print out a copy that you could show people. One of the reasons for us bringing stuff is because what we're selling at a listing appointment is an intangible. We're selling the agent's promise, your promise to provide a service in the future. Do you understand? That's all the seller gets. Your promise to provide a service in the future. This is why they have a tendency to go on track record. The more tangible representations you have of your promise, the easier it is to sell it. So just listed, just sold. Again, would it, even the just solds, does it just pick out some listings that are in escrow and ask, can I make some samples? Make a just sold with your name and your picture and your phone number on it that you could show people. So there's a listing presentation here, and there's another listing presentation, and there's a pre-listing presentation someplace else. So there's more than one version. The big red block is the most recent version. There's a presentation form, which is basically a cover letter. There's actually, I see more than one. The pre-listing presentation is something that you would give to them before you meet with them. A listing presentation is something you would take with you. If you don't think you're going to have time to get to them before, then you could combine them. So once you click on it, you click on personalize. And what I would like you to do is to make a listing presentation for somebody. And the reason I'm suggesting you do that is that there's a little funkiness, a little funkability in the system. And what I mean by that is that when you put in the client's name, it doesn't merge as elegantly as I would like it, or as probably as you would like it. And so what I usually do is I open up Notepad and I type in their name, John and Mary Smith, And then once I've got that, now down here, see it says prepared for, you click on that, and then you put in, right, you have to, now what I sometimes do is I'll just copy all of that, and it wants permission to do it. And in something like this, it doesn't really matter. Then I would put in their name. And then I know this loses a little bit of formatting, but I'm incredibly lazy. And then when I paste it in, some of it is red, and so highlight that, make it black, highlight that. The reason what I want to do is I want to get it right just once. I could change all these colors, and then now that I have it, I'm going to copy it, because what you're going to see as we go from page to page, this, by the way, is and this is the other thing that you may want. By the way, the only place you have to modify the client information is on the front. But this part here, which sometimes you might want to modify so it looks a little bit better, it has different words, that's what you would copy, because you're going to notice that on every single page, this is going to appear. So we go to page 3, and in other words, if I wanted to modify that, it's easy for me to do it one time, copy it, paste it on every page. By the way, once you've done this, you don't have to do it every time. In other words, what you're going to do, once you've got it so that it looks like you want it once, and usually it's that part down there, once you've done that, you go to File, Save As, and you save it as your listing presentation template, and then when you open it next time, it's already got the formatting the way you would like it. All right, that's and if you do this, you're going to find that a lot of the questions, and it leads you, they already have a lot of this stuff already built in. Now, remember the magic folder I was talking about? I know there's more stuff in here than I really wanted to give you, but one of the things I have, is this it? Listing Consultation 2. That's something that I had done a long time ago. I'll leave it. Oops, I'll leave it. Now I'm all over the place. I have some versions of the PowerPoint. I have some versions of this that are not in eEdge, but they're in PowerPoint. So anyhow, that's something else. I'm going to edit my little folder before I dump it on you, unless you all want to see it. So what's the good stuff? One of the good things that I've included is this is a vertical listing presentation. It's in PowerPoint. This is another option, and this is from the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite. This is a vertical based power. There's also a horizontal one. And what would be the difference between the two? When would you use one or the other?
Townhomes versus single-family homes.
Yes, and all right, there are two, there's probably more than two, but let's say there are two general ways in which you can present your information. One is in a printed piece of paper, in a binder, folder, or book of some sort, and the other one is by using a mobile device. Now, if you're using a mobile device, and this is a PowerPoint presentation, then you're going to want the horizontal one that is set up for a mobile device. If you're thinking, I'm going to take my laptop and use it, you need to really think about this. So, and the part you need to think about is, where are you going to be such that they're going to be, that they can see what's on your screen and you can yet control it. Just think about that, right? Take out a piece of paper, right? You can sit between them, right? You could hover over their shoulders. You could try it from the side, but a lot of screens don't work that well from the side. You understand there's some real issues in that. And if you might say, well, I'm going to put it on their TV. I hope they have the right stuff, right, for you to do that. If you have a tablet, I eventually went to a tablet because I can easily turn it around and I can hold it in front of me like a piece of paper and I could learn to click on it. Should you practice, if you're using a tablet in a PowerPoint presentation, should you practice a lot so that if you wanted to find the part about open houses, it doesn't take you 10 minutes to do it, right? If you're going to be old school, you're just going to take the vertical one and print it out, right? So you would go through, notice it says, this is a pretty self-explanatory, this one looks nice, right? And it's got a cover letter and it's got stuff about your marketing strategy. Notice there's a lot of stuff here that you may not want to do, right? About print media. And so just delete the slide if you don't want to do it. And professional photography, I have agents say, I'm not going to do that. Well, then delete that slide. Keep deleting, right? But this is a really nice looking presentation. And you could, and I'm going to give you access to it. By the way, Danelle can email it to you. The vertical and the horizontal ones, here's the horizontal one, are both part of the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite, but you can't easily get your hands on it because you have to be special and have a special login in order to get it. So this is what it would look like on a PowerPoint presentation for a tablet PC. Question, yes.
Back to where you're talking about having sample flyers to show.
Yeah.
Have you ever included them or in a way of kind of establishing collaboration in that presentation, allowed them to pick one?
Sure. I would ask people which are the ones they like the best. It also creates the image that you've done more business than you maybe have. And so some of the ones, what I would do is I would have the word sold on them, right? So I would take a property that has sold, make a sample flyer and put sold on it, sold on it, sold on it. By the way, when you reach a certain point where you have a stack of real flyers that you've made for real houses that have sold, this is easier because you're hoping they'll ask you the question, are these all yours? You'll say, well, of course they are. So does this make, I don't know what are your thoughts about this so far?
I love it.
Let me share my one thing, and then what I would do if I were you, I'm going to put this on my handy notes, is where I would put your attention is on the marketing plan. And I'm going to just share with you something that I came up with really out of desperation, the gift of desperation. I had done very well in Blossom Valley. I started farming Almaden. And in Almaden, there was a husband and wife team, by their names were Chuck and Janet Weller. I remember them to this day, and they were killing it in Almaden. They had, by far, they were the most successful team, the most successful agents in Almaden. They were all over the place. They were taking out full-page ads in the Almaden Times. They were sending out postcards. And people kept saying to me, well, you know, I had to say, who else are you talking to? They say, we're talking to Chuck and Janet Weller. Why them? Well, they sell almost all the homes in the area. And so the people kept saying to me, well, how long have you been in, how many homes have you sold in Almaden? And so finally this is my strategy for that. I would ask the people, do you remember when you bought this home? How long ago was it? It's 10 years ago, right? Do you remember, why did you buy this home 10 years ago? They would say, well, we like the house and schools, nice neighborhood. I'd say, great. The listing agent, when you bought this home, do you remember who that was? Virtually never could they give me the full name. Every once in a while they'd say, Linda, I think, or something like that. I'd say, all right. And the company that Linda worked for, do you remember them? And they'd look at each other and say, I don't know, you know what? It was Coldwell Banker, maybe it was a blue sign. Wasn't it a blue sign? I think it was a blue sign. Maybe it was Coldwell Banker. Right? So then the question is, how your decision to buy this house, how much influence did Linda and Coldwell Banker have in your decision to buy this house? As a factor, how important was that? And they would all say, not at all. And I'd say, right. This is a secret that most real estate agents don't want you to know. But real estate agents don't sell houses. Houses sell houses. What real estate agents do is they get people to see your house. So I would then sometimes say, well, let's say, was there a second house you had in mind? Was there like, two or three that you were sort of narrowing it down? They'd say, yeah, think of number two, the one you didn't choose to buy, right? Everything is the same as it was back then. Exactly, it looks the same. Everything is the same except house number two now has a red Remax sign and it says Chuck and Janet on it. Are you going to buy it now? Would you have bought it if it had Chuck and Janet's name on the? And they'd say, well, of course not. Right. So then I'd go into this thing about how Chuck and Janet and many real estate agents are very good at self-promotion, but they're good at personal promotion, self-promotion, but they're not really spending any time trying to sell your house. So my metaphor was, I'm going to share it with you. This is what I said, I always said this. I said, if you're buying a suit or a jacket or a dress or clothes, if you're going shopping, would you pay more if it was exactly the right color, the right style, and the right fit? Would you pay more for something if it fit perfectly versus something that didn't fit so good? Everybody would say, well, of course we would. Well, that's our job, is to find the buyer for whom your home fits. They're going to pay more. And the way that's done is not by putting Chuck and Janet's name on the sign or having a red sign or a blue sign or a green sign, right? That's not what it's the marketing plan. It's exposing your property to the greatest number of potential buyers. Your home may sell anyhow because it's the kind of market we're in. The question is for how much. The more people we expose your property to, the more likely you're going to get the highest possible price. We'll find the buyer for whom your home fits. That's the best I got for that. One other, yes, question.
I'm sorry.
Go
No, I
ahead.
don't have a question. I wanted to tell a story.
Tell a story.
I'm just telling it because I know there's a lot of new people in here. But when I first started in real estate, which was a long time ago, my first listing was in a home that had been wrapped up by this one listing agent, and I had met the sellers at a new home subdivision. Anyway, long story short, I went in there and I had been previewing so much because I was a new agent, and I thought that the houses in the neighborhood could sell for more than they were selling for. So I went in and I did a listing presentation, and this was around a $100,000 house, and so my number was somewhere between 5 and 10% higher than what most of the homes had sold for because I wasn't in that box, Anyway, they gave me the listing. The house sold in 3 days for full price. And when I went on that listing presentation and they said, well, so-and-so sells all the homes in this neighborhood. And I said, well, I understand. And she thinks that they all have to sell for $95,000, but I think this can sell for $103,000. So they gave me the listing. It sold in 3 days. And then I did the whole neighborhood because I got out of the box and sold that house and presented it as, it's a benefit that I haven't sold houses in this neighborhood, not a negative.
Right. And the other thing is that did that agent really sell or did they list?
She sold. She consistently sold them for almost.
Well, by sold, I mean, did she double into the transactions?
Yes, she did.
All right. Well, then that's got its own problem. One of the other things that I would do on a listing appointment is I would talk about a company called Proxio. By the way, you ought to spend some time working on all the different things that you're going to use to distinguish yourself. Do we have in our area buyers from outside of the United States? So explain to me your marketing plan for reaching investors from other countries. What are you going to do? And if you have, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in our MLS. There's Proxio, which is a Keller Williams approved supplier. You click on real estate agents, plans and pricing. So what Proxio is, it's an international MLS. And for $9.99 a month, or $99 for 1 year, and I don't believe that you're really locked in, you could be a standard agent, put in 5 photos, and it markets it to 600,000 real estate agents in over 100 countries. And by the way, it translates the information. And if you were doing more of this, you could do more things. But for $9.99 a month, you could explain to them that it's going to be marketed all over the world. Just thought I would share that with you. Proxio, Proxio.com. And I believe they have some marketing materials and things like that, demos, webinars. Check it out. In our market, this is something, if you're not doing, I loaded up on the marketing plan. I did single property websites. I had professional photographs. I did everything, because what I wanted them to do was pick the agent based on the marketing plan, not on what the agent said about themselves. Right? Because I've gone through this thing that doesn't really matter in selling your home. And so if you're going to do that, by the way, this is how, without experience, you can get a listing. Because the more experienced agents are, the more they tend to talk about themselves. Just been my experience. I know some agents will spend 45 minutes of the hour explaining every award they've ever had and everything they've ever done, right? Don't ask questions. Why should they? They already know everything. And once you go through that, how did you buy this house? How influential was the listing agent in your decision, right? When they realize that they bought the house because they liked the house, not because they liked the listing agent. So did the resume of the agent have anything to do? Once they get that, then that agent has spent 45% of the 45 minutes of their time talking about something that's not important necessarily to the seller. All right, well, that's enough. Where I'm going to put this, does everybody know how to find links? I think I've lost my connection to kw.com. I know who's here. I'll email you a link to my master. Do you want me to clean it up, or do you want to see all the raw, everything I've got? Clean it up.
Only the best.
Only the best. All right.